Now, policies, which of course form the center of politics, will remain mere documents on paper if they are not properly implemented. But then implementation will be really hard if there is no financial backing. Simply put, money, or should I say financing and politics, are inseparable. This is why we stay with the 2019 budget for one more day, and we take a look at its prospect now that it has been passed by both chambers of the National Assembly. Now, this is what we have for the 2019 appropriation bill. It is at 8.92 trillion naira, and these are the assumptions that you have right there. Oil price is at $60 per barrel, and that's presumed that oil production will be at 2.3 million barrels per day at an exchange rate of 305 naira to a dollar. And then the projected revenue is 6.97 trillion naira. So you see there's a deficit there. And those are the assumptions for the 2018 budget, just to help you get a sense of what happened last year, as of the third quarter of 2018. Last year's budget was 9.12 trillion naira. It was a landmark budget. And assumptions for last year was $51 per barrel, oil production at 2.3 million barrels per day. Not much different from what we have now. An exchange rate at 305 naira to a dollar. And projected revenue was 7.17 trillion naira. But in reality, what eventually happened as at third quarter of last year was that oil price was at $74 per barrel, which, if you ask me, was good. But then oil production, if you see, dropped to 1.95 million barrels per day. And eventually, actual aggregate revenue was 2.84 trillion naira. That's a major drop right there. And then it goes on to show you what we have for this year. So tonight, we'll be taking a deeper look at the issue of the budget, which of course is important to politics. And we're not alone, as we're being joined by a member of the House of Representatives who was a part of the appropriation process. Honorable Chris Agborumi is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Appropriation. And right next to him is Mr. Obadiah Melafia. He's also joined us from Abuja as a former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen, on the program tonight. Now, I'd like to begin with Honorable Agborumi. Now, we know that the 2019 budget has been passed by the House of Representatives, and we know that quite all right. But then what we don't know is at what stage it is now. Where is it going to? How long will it take to get there? I understand you have a few objections with your name. Let's begin with that.
Thank you very much. You have to start by correcting my name. My name is Honorable Chris Azubogo.
Apologies, Honorable Chris Azubogo. So please tell us, where is the 2019 appropriation bill now that it has been passed by the House of Representatives? Where is it going? How long will it take to get there?
It's a very straightforward thing. The budget has been passed by both houses. What is happening now, the bill is being cleaned up for upward transmission to Mr. President for action. These are internal processes of the National Assembly. So there's nothing much that is left. I'm sure by early next week, the clerk of the National Assembly must have taken possession of it and go through it, make sure that all the things, the details that have been looked through by the committees is being verified by the special departments that are in the National Assembly to prepare it in a state by which the document will be transmitted to Mr. President for action. All
right. Now, before I go to Mr. Melafia, I asked one of your colleagues, that's in the upper house, the Senate, about this budget. And what I asked him was, is this a budget that Nigerians should be excited about? I'd like to get your response to that.
Thank you very much. It is a budget as proposed by Mr. President to consolidate on the plans of this government. The plans of this government is hinged on the fact that they've developed a clear medium-term program or plan that is encapsulated in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And this budget is intended to consolidate on the gains already made. And I think the National Assembly have done judiciously to ensure that everything, most of the things that the President requested through the executive arm of the government is being upheld by the National Assembly. Despite we are there, I mean, small changes.
All right.
Based on still inputs that came from the executive.
So Nigerians should be excited as it stands.
Requires attention.
So are you saying Nigerians should be excited?
Just like any other thing, it's a plan.
Okay.
The excitement is in implementation anyway.
All right.
Because the test of the pudding is in eating.
Okay, now
So
that you
we've
bring
done
up
we've done a
implementation,
big job.
now that you've brought up implementation,
So
I'd like
what
to
we
go
need to do is that, like,
a moment, please. I'd like to go to Mr. Melafia now and get his thoughts. Mr. Melafia, you are an economist. You have taken a look at the figures, and I'm sure you have a better understanding than an average Nigerian. So when you take a look at these figures, what do you see? Give us a breakdown, a simple breakdown, if I may.
You know that the original figure was 8.833 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was about 90 billion was added onto it to bring it to about 8.916 trillion, compared to 9.12 trillion for 2018, which means, in fact, as a total ballpark figure, we have actually moved backwards rather than forwards. When you consider the fact that our population grows every year by an average of 3.2%, actually it is a substantial drop in the amount that is provided for in a budget that we expect will help to, improve livelihoods and drive the economy. I'm also very disappointed that it is coming at the month of May, almost halfway through the year. This is not good enough. I wouldn't put the blame on either, the executive or the legislature. I think it's a bit of both. We really need to go back to that discipline whereby everything about the budget is completed by the 31st of December.
What?
Nobody should go on holiday until the budget is completed.
Now, Mr. Melafia, we took a look at the trend over the past 5 years or more of the budgets, the presentation, the passing and eventual assent, and we realized that this has been the trend. It is usually presented to the National Assembly around December, then it is passed around April or thereabouts, March, April, and eventually it is assented to by May, June. So this has been the trend for over 5 years. So, I mean, if this has been the trend, how can it change at this point?
We should be able to do it. I mean, this is massive confusion, and the cost for the country must be very huge. I mean, a friend, an engineer in the construction industry, was just discussing with me yesterday that, in the south, especially where it rains so heavily, you can't really construct anything reasonable between the months of June, July, August, September, because of the heavy rains. So if a budget is being passed at the beginning of May, how long do they have to do mobilization, do all the planning, clear the roads, start construction, and so on and so forth? I'm talking about, capital expenditure projects. So for this reason, the fact that we've been doing something wrong for the past 100 years doesn't mean it is a good thing and we should keep it. We can't do it. There was a time in this country when budgets kicked off at the beginning of the year. We need to go back to that discipline. It is possible.
Okay. Now, Mr. Melafia, I understand there's a bill in the National Assembly called the Budget Timeline Bill, but we'll take a look at that in a moment. But Honorable Azobugu, I'd like to take you up on something Mr. Melafia mentioned, and that's the addition that was put to the original appropriation bill that was presented to the National Assembly. And one of it was for severance package for members of the National Assembly. I'm sure you've heard the controversy and, arguments that have trailed this particular addition. How do you respond to it? About 23 billion naira, if I'm correct, was added.
Thank you very much. I want to rightly state here that the increase in the budget, which is very slight like anybody, probably less than 1%, about close to 1% of the entire budget size, was due to things that we are missing or that we are missed out of the original proposal of Mr. President. It is not history, or it's not, it's not out of place for everybody to know that every 4 years, the National Assembly, life of the National Assembly comes to an end and a new one starts. And there are things that the government needs to do. It is not part of the National Assembly overall budget. It's contained in the service-wide vote. It has always been there. The issue of severance and gratuity for those who are leaving, it is a government establishment. National Assembly is not made up of only 469 members. You have aides, legislative aides, you have civil servants, you have management. There are bureaucracies in National Assembly, including an institution, the institution of legislative and democratic studies. So these are things you look at. When people look at it, anyway, it's just like anybody would say, it seems like the cost of democracy is very high. But like education, if the cost of education is very expensive, why not try ignorance? The truth is that you must, as contained in the guidelines that they have, sever those who are living or draw to an end the close of the life of an assembly and start off a new one.
Okay.
These are expenditures that have been there over time.
All right.
When it was mentioned, they went back to history. They went back to history and the records of the finance ministry, and they saw that every 4 years, these are things that must be done.
Please, I'd like you to hold your thoughts a bit. Now, the question is not really about whether it is needed or not. Some have said that it is probably too much, but that's something we'll dwell on when we return from after the break, and I'll allow Mr. Melafia also weigh in on that. Please stay with us on the program as we take a look at the 2019 budget and, of course, the implementation in the coming weeks. Stay with us.